Council will come to order. All rise and salute the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence in honor of our servicemen and women who have served here and continue to serve both here and abroad. Thank you. Clerk will call the roll.
Councillor Anderson. Here. Bucci. Christenson. Here. Condon. Here. DePietro. Here. Furlong. Here. Kinnan. Here. Lucy. Here. Matheson. Here. Nestor. Spatafora.
Here. Sorry for being a couple minutes late, everybody. We had a committee meeting run over, so I apologize. Madam Clerk, first order of business.
The minutes of the meetings of October 20th, October 27th, and November 10th.
On Councillor Christenson's motion to approve the minutes, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Minutes are approved. Next order of business.
Application for a license to drive a taxi cab, Agaris Corrales, 17 Woodbridge Street, Cambridge. James Powell, 105A Salem Street. Francis Vecchia, 40 Bainbridge Street. James Lambert, 2 Stout Ave, Linfield.
On Councillor Neal Anderson's motion to refer to license, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Items are referred to license. Next order of business.
Ordered that the Ordinance Committee review the pay-as-you-throw ordinance based on the November 3rd vote on question 1. Councillors Christenson, Kinnan, and Nestor.
Councillor Christenson for the paper. Councillor Christenson.
Thanks, Mr. President. This is just a follow-up to question 1 that was voted on November 2nd. Just looking at the vote, seems to be still some differences out there on the program. And so with that being said, plus 2 new members coming on that have indicated some openness to at least looking at the issue again, I figured it would behoove us to refer it to committee and at least get the ball rolling on whether or not there's anything we can do to improve it. Some of the parameters that I would be working under is that if anything were to take place, I would propose it obviously be in July 1st, and then anything that the Ordinance Committee suggested would be referred to the Finance Committee for their review and approval as well. So I just thought it would make sense, though, based upon that day's outcome, that we at least, put it back into committee and just take another look to see if there's anything we're missing. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Any questions for the Councilor or Councilors? Any other lights? Okay. Councilor Kinnan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, too, am in favor of this and a sponsor. I also would have no intention of doing anything prior to July 1st, but I think that the residents have spoken. 5,700 some odd people voted in favor of this, a 68% majority, which is in any election a landslide. I might also remind the people out there that the vote, and this is a chart, and in every case, in every ward, overwhelming support for at least change, if nothing else, from a low of 57.8% in Ward 3 to a high of 76% in Ward 6, voted to eliminate the program as it exists. I would further like to say it would be a tragedy for this city to let an arcane ordinance from 1950, when the average voter turnout prior to that was 66%. And those people who put that threshold of 33% in place never thought that a majority wouldn't overrule, particularly if it was a landslide. And so for us, not to relook at this after that type of landslide would indeed be a tragedy, particularly for citizen engagement, which is something that we've tried desperately to get. We've had no issue which has had more citizen engagement in many years in this community. I would further like to say that there is no politician sitting at this table or in this city hall tonight that's currently in office that has ever gotten 9,400 votes, including in 1995 when my friend, and I was on the team, and put the mayor in office, and he voted. He was elected over Ed Lucy, and he got 6,300 votes that day. And I don't think anybody would say that was illegitimate or shouldn't have counted, or the 16,000 people who showed up that day had more say in the election than the 6,300 people who voted for him. So for that reason, I am on this, and also would like to see it go back to committee for discussion to see what we could do to honor the 5,700 people who came out, took the time to engage themselves in this community and speak their will. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other? Councillor Condon.
I wasn't going to have much discussion on this, but certainly won't be a popular position. But I think some things you have to consider is under charter plans, under Massachusetts general laws, I think it's Chapter 43, that was put in place. That number of 33% was put in place by the legislature and still stands today for charter plans. There's something like 5 different charter plans. And I think the people in 1950 basically adopted that number that the legislature had put in place. So that should be understood. And even today, it still stands, that number, 33%. So there's several ways of, I guess, analyzing the vote. 17% of the people voted against the bags. That leaves 83% still left out there of the registered voters. Now, a portion of those people voted against it, a portion blanked it, and there's a portion somewhere in the vicinity of over 20,000 people that weren't upset enough to come out and vote, whether for it or against it. So what you're talking about here, there's 20,000 voters unspoken for. Personally, I feel that the program has been a tremendous success, but I also understand that there's people out there against it. Some of those votes, in my opinion, were a message to us: we don't like the way you did it. And that's justified, because we didn't have those public hearings like we should. We listened to the people during those meetings who said, drop the price of the bag for the seniors. The people that can't afford it, that are below the federal guidelines on income, we set something up with TRICAP, $25,000 worth of bags, so that if people were below that poverty level, they could get free bags. So we did do that. So we listened to the people that were there. We've committed to have public hearings during our budget process. It's very, very difficult to even consider making any kind of changes without a budget in front of us, to know exactly what the ramifications would be. If the council decided to give a free bag, well, what's the cost and the revenue? You know, it's somewhere in the vicinity of $800,000 to $1 million. How does that equate to people? Where will the money be cut from. Now, if you consider all of this and the fact that we may escape 9C cuts in the middle of the year from the governor, if we escape 9C cuts, we're going to take it on the chin for sure in July in local aid. Most of the municipalities are preparing budgets of a reduction of 10% and hoping that we see 5%. If we see 10%, we're looking at approximately 5.2 million in cut from local aid. If we see 5%, we're looking at about 2.6 million in reductions. That doesn't include our normal fixed costs that go up, like health insurance and what we pay. We've already said that there'll be no raises in the budget. I don't think there's any plan for it. I have no problem reviewing the pay-as-you-throw, all right, but I think it should be done in the budget process. When we have everything in front of us. We know how many firefighters we got on hand, 115. We ate up 7 jobs last year. We know that we have 105 policemen. Years ago, before 2.5, you had over 120. Firefighters, you had approximately 160. Okay, we've closed 2 stations. There's not much you can do there, with public safety. And we have to know what we're going to have to cut, because I think mostly everybody in this council is committed not to raise the prices of those bags. I know I have. Okay, so we're certainly expecting we're going to have to step up, and we'll have a room full of people here for sure, because it's going to, if there's a cut in local aid, we're going to have to cut personnel for sure, because we've cut almost everything else in that budget. We're going to have to think about furloughs for our own city hall people. We're going to have to probably try to work with the unions and suggest that they take furloughs, much like the sheriff's department. I think they've worked through 3 unions, including the tough corrections officers, and I believe they've all, rather than to vote out to lay off people, they agreed to enter into a furlough program. So there's going to be a lot of work to be done in the budget season. I think we should take it all together, all right? And if there's going to be changes, that's the time to do it. And that's the way I feel about it, at this point. And I think we follow the process. We have followed the process. People worked hard. They got the signatures, all right? It came to us. We voted, I think, 11-0 to put it on the ballot. Everybody knew what the threshold was. I'm not saying it's I'm not saying maybe that's the right number, but everybody knew what you had to attain for votes. The vote was almost 3,700 short, I believe. Okay, the threshold was not met. Whether or not it was high or low, that will be addressed through the charter people that are redoing our charter. But, everybody, we followed the process. And I think the next step in the process would be to look at this pay-as-you-throw, look at what we're facing for cuts, money-wise, local aid, and look at how our public safety people are going to be affected, and how our school department is going to be affected, and how the services right here in City Hall will be affected. I understand I'm going to get chopped up, for sure, for taking that position. But if everybody's saying nothing's going to happen till July 1st, then we need to have everything in front of us. We need to know what the numbers are going to be. And then put it all together, have public meetings, listen to the people. We won't make that same mistake twice. But that's my position, and I won't support it going to ordinance right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, Councilor Condon. Next up is Councilor Neal Anderson. Councilor Anderson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. the paper calls for this going to the ordinance committee to review the pay-as-you-throw program, but it sounds like the discussion that we're talking about is to do more with charter change and changing the parameters for a home rule petition. I think that we all had an opportunity to hear what the voters had to say. I think we saw, and I know in my ward, there have been many people who have really been incensed by, and I think justifiably so, by the lack of public hearings over us implementing the pay-as-you-throw program. And I think, any criticism that are directed toward us has some merit with that regard. But I'm a supporter of the pay-as-you-throw ordinance. I'm a supporter of the idea that I don't want to see our services cut more than we can afford to handle. And the pay-as-you-throw program, allows us revenue to come in that is needed for the city. There are people who no one wants to pay extra for something that they thought was at one point given to them for free. Before pay-as-you-throw, people, would put their trash out on the curb, and no matter what was out there, it was picked up. And so now, all of a sudden, starting in October of last year, there's a fee for that. Well, unfortunately, that's the changing times. The state budget has crippled these cities and towns so much that unless we want to change the quality of life here in Malden, unless we want to close fire stations or lay off police officers or have even less money to do our streets and sidewalks and repairs, we've got to find a way to bring in some additional money. And the pay-as-you-throw program, to me, as unpopular as it is a way for everyone to add a little bit more to the revenue of our city. I think, my personal experience has been that the amount of money that I thought I was going to be spending to get rid of my trash, has been nowhere near what was earlier projected. I mean, it's just my wife and I at home, but we're doing $1 bag per week, and sometimes we don't even fill the $1 bag per week. There's a lot more of the recycling that has been encouraged as a result of people having to pay the bags, and I think all through the city we can see people are recycling like they've never done before. So while the voters came out and spoke about their unhappiness with it, those of us that are here and see the budgets and see how much money we've got coming in from the state, see how much less money we've got coming in from the state, and looking at the bigger picture with dollar signs all around it, we've got an idea that the voters want us to exercise our judgment around those things. I think that when we get into the budget process, when we get into April and even March and April, when we start looking at all this, we get a better idea of what the money's going to be coming in from the state. That's the time for us to be looking at whatever tweaking we might be able to do to the pay-as-you-throw program. But I'm a supporter of it, as unpopular as it may have been, and I've certainly listened to my constituents who have complained about it. But I also hear my constituents who say, Neal, I wasn't for this because I didn't like the way the program was rolled out. But, it really hasn't materialized into the major dilemma and problems that were talked about, when we first started discussing at the open meetings. The city isn't dirtier. People are complying for the most part, for the vast majority of people. They're complying with buying the bags. May not like it, may not like having to pay for a bag when they didn't before, but it's a cost that I think that has been less than what we anticipated for the individual. We've certainly saved the city significant money in our tonnage. Yes, we can tweak it, and as Councillor Condon was talking about, all the things that we have done in this last year with the reduction of the cost of bag from the $2 to the $1, the smaller size, the money that was set aside for TRICAP, and all of those things have been a way for us to tweak this even in this current year. So I'm not going to vote in support of this going to the Ordinance Committee, but instead would expect that we will look at this when we get into the budget process. And when we've got all the figures in front of us and look at it at that point and see what changes we can make to it. So thank you, Mr. President, and my intention is not to support this order. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Anderson. Councilor Kinnon.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. To respond to Councilor Condon and Councilor Anderson, we can put our blinders on, but when 68% of the people vote one way, there may be a few out there who feel a certain thing. This was an overwhelming mandate to take another look at this, at least, and to eliminate it. And 72.9% of the voters in Ward 7 did not vote with their councillor. 65% in Ward 2 did not vote with their councillor. And I could go through every ward. No need to do that. But the reality is we are here to serve the people. The people overwhelmingly mandated. It is a fairy tale, Councilor Condon, to suggest that the people who did not come out to vote should count more than those who do. Plain and simple. And as I stated earlier, there's nobody sitting here in elective office who's ever gotten 9,400 votes, or, to my knowledge, 1/3 of the registered voters, even in their ward. So are we all illegitimate candidates? Should we not be up here? And again, it's an arcane system in the past. The voters have indeed spoken about this, and it is, again, to Councilor Bucci over there from Ward 8, who has certainly done a wonderful job in terms of citizen engagement. To ignore this as the greatest citizen engagement we've had in the last 25 years would be folly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Kinnon. Councilor Christenson? Is that you? Councilor Condon.
Oh, yield. No, go ahead. You sure? Okay. I don't think anybody said they were ignoring the voters that didn't come out. All right? What we said was there was a threshold that was not met. And you want to put blinders on? Put them on. Okay? The threshold was not met. We followed the process. All right? I don't have any problem reviewing this at the right time. But no one said that the people that didn't vote count more than the people that vote. All right? But they obviously weren't as concerned as the ones that voted. Now, how you want to interpret that, I don't know. I really don't care. I gave the facts and the figures of what occurred. That's all I did. My opinion is my opinion. Your opinion is your opinion. But I know one thing, all right? If it gets overturned, all right, it's in the vicinity of $2.5 to $3 million. At the very least, add another $3 to $5 million that we're going to have to cut. So 3 and let's say $4 million is $7.5 million. You want to cripple this city? We'll cripple it if we're going to cut $7 million, and I won't be part of it. So that's my position, and it's certainly, I respect your opinion, okay, but please don't interpret what I say as saying that the people, the 20,000 people that didn't exercise their right to vote count more than the people that did vote. I'd appreciate that if you didn't interpret what I said in the way you see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Anderson?
Yes, thank you. I think that in my opening remarks I had mentioned that we certainly did listen to what people had to say. I think we've all seen the voters come out and express that they wanted to see the program overturned. I think my impression is that many of the people we're more incensed with the way it was rolled out as opposed to the program. I mean, the program, I don't think any of us would think that the program itself isn't working. Were people opposed to the way it was rolled out? Yes. And I think we should have done it differently. We can all acknowledge that. But let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater because of what we rolled out incorrectly or probably not the most appropriate way. We all can see what the savings are. And we will have an opportunity when we go through the budget process to review this, to tweak it where we need to. I mean, so my vote not to send this to ordinance isn't any indication that I haven't listened to the dissatisfaction that's out there. But I think the most appropriate time for us to look at this is during the budget process, and so therefore my intention is to vote against this ordinance, against this order to send it to the ordinance committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Anderson. Councilor Bucci.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to obviously respond to Councilor Kinnon's comment related to the citizen engagement work, and that this is one of the more significant issues that certainly should be discussed with that type of committee. I certainly have been on record as clearly saying that I myself have supported PAYT. I am among many tonight that can also agree, respectfully agree, that we did not roll this out. We did not have a very informative discussion with our community when we had decided to take on this particular initiative in our budget. I think and again, I feel I'm repeating some of the comments made here tonight, but the reality is since I heard that message, we certainly have had multiple conversations with the public. For the public, the few public that actually come out to have conversations. But I am on the same page with some of my colleagues tonight that clearly I operate under procedure and process. And currently this city has a charter that has been outlined to us how it is supposed to actually roll out. Excuse me. Because I'm a believer of that, and a believer of that fact that if the ordinance team is looking at charter today and going to ultimately recommend that be changed for all the data that you have presented, Councillor Kinnon, then at one point we'll have a different discussion around what is a valid outcome of an election. But I'm not going to embrace a change in our procedure or process until the charter has been changed. I'm working and have been working under the guidelines of our city ordinances. So, again, I just want to be on record as saying I have acknowledged clearly that as the chair of the Citizen Engagement Committee, that back in the day we did not engage our public in a timely manner, but have done so in every opportunity that we've had, whether it be budget related or any type of other initiative that the city leadership has taken on that I am responsible for. But in this case, I happen to agree with Councillor Anderson as well as Councillor Condon that the correct process is to do this. I heard the message. I heard the message loud and clear in Ward 8. I am listening to them, but I'm going to do that work when, in fact, the procedure and process is to be timely. And it is tied around having all of the information you need to make a conscientious decision, not to make a decision just based on important data that we just had at our election time, but this is not the time to do it. It is the appropriate time to know where all our ducks are lined up, where all our funding is and other resources are going to be coming from. At this point and at this juncture of 5.5 months into the 2010 budget is not the time to make any of those changes. But I don't think, I can't speak for everyone, I can speak for myself, that I am committed to the message that they sent. I have been committed in terms of issues that we heard post the initiative actually being implemented last summer. Bottom line, though, for me is that it needs to be done in the time frame that our charter has stated, as well as knowing what information I need to make a conscientious decision, whether it's, not so much the bucket bag, whether we change a box from a $20 box to a $10 box so that people can go in and buy their cereal and their milk and have to still help us maintain a clean city and help us with revenue to make sure that the number one priority is our public safety. I've just experienced, just by default, 4 significant crimes take place in the Linden community, and the MPD has responded very effectively by moving people into my ward. But if I ruled the world today, I'd have more police force. Have more police on our force. It's not because we're anymore in our crime isn't growing. It's the nature of just where we're at today. So, for me to think about the fact that I could be potentially having to look at a budget that's going to reduce our firemen, our police force, and most importantly, our educational staff, I just can't get my hands around that. But when I have all the information, what will be coming in from the state, what's coming in from us from a local level, as well as our educational funds, then I will be able to make a well-informed decision on what's the next best step as we look at the current PAYT program and the existing ordinance. And hopefully we will have an opportunity, but that opportunity is obviously going to come out of another change in that budget if nothing else changes today. And if I hear Councillor Condon, his ear to the street, which I have not heard, that budgets are being created in other municipalities that are looking at a 10% reduction, that gets pretty frightening. So, again, I just do want to respond, though, because I know that we've got the media here and we're on television. The Citizen Engagement Committee dropped the ball when we did this program. But I haven't dropped the ball, and nor has that committee dropped the ball at any other opportunity to make sure that we are engaging our folks in our decision-making and in our creative activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bucci and Councillor Christenson. I'll go to Councillor Kinnon. I know you're late, so on Council. So, Councillor Christenson for the first time.
Thank you, Mr. President, for your indulgence. And I would agree with many of what the opponents have said. You want the numbers, you want the documents, you want the state aid figures. But to me, I would agree with all that. But to me, when 70% of the people, have made a decision, that to me is paramount above and beyond having all the documents. And I don't mean, Mr. President, referring the program and next week coming out with something that decimates it. I'm talking about taking a real good review of the program. Now, we could do that during budget time, but I think we've all been through the process. It's very chaotic, very hectic, and it's really difficult, I think, to spend the time necessary to take a look at a program like Pay As You Throw. I mean, it deserves that much more, particularly after what we saw a couple of weeks ago. I think what Councillor Kinnon said, part of this referral really is to keep the people that did come out involved, engaged, show them that we at least heard what they had to say. We're simply going to refer it to committee. And then the other thing that we would do is refer it to finance at some point. But to not look at, some of the other things that may have evolved during the past year and a half. Some cities and towns are doing stickers now because there's complaints about bags. Where do they go? Are they environmentally friendly? There's talk about some cities and towns going to bi-weekly pickup on recyclables or, another way to construct the program. And then, of course, I don't want anybody to be misled. I would never refer a program to a committee without knowing that if it were to change, new revenue would have to be identified. I know that. I would never, I think in the 6 years I've been on the council, I would never take that approach. But to me, that combined, I think I'm actually a little surprised. I thought this would be in order based upon what we saw. And so I just want to reiterate, this is a referral, of a program that was discussed on Election Day. And to me, I don't see what the harm is of, simply seeing if there's anything we missed that would help, make the program a little bit better for all in the community. So that's the real intent, Mr. President. I just wanted to reiterate that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kinnon.
Actually.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor. Councillor Ness, I apologize.
Thank you. No, I'm supporting this just to start a discussion. I see what Councillor Condon and Councillor Anderson saying, and I agree with that. And I think it would be fiscally irresponsible of us to do take any kind of action prior to the fiscal year. And I certainly wouldn't support pulling this type of revenue out of the city at this particular time without a solid alternative funding source available. So, again, I see this as more of starting the discussion, much like we did on the efficiency committee, coming up with a number of scenarios that may be incorporated, may not be incorporated, not for any kind of change, running the gamut on any kind of initiative that came through. But again, just starting the discussion, see what's out there, and then when we do have the figures at the end of the fiscal year, to see if any of them are viable. So that's why I'm supporting that. Just again, start the discussion rolling. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Nesta. Councilor Kinnon. Councilor Kinnon.
I too agree with Councilor Nesta, Mr. President, and my fellow councilors that we are likely to get a budget, just as Councilor Condon suggests, it's going to come down probably late whenever there's fiscal issues. So like this budget, when we put it in place originally, we're likely to see it on May 29th or some date thereabouts. And then in 3 weeks, we know the mayor will come down with pay-as-you-throw fully in there, the way it is today. And we'll have 3 weeks to figure out what we're going to do. Not a sufficient amount of time to do so. And as we started out, and I certainly said I was committed that nothing could change before July 1st. But if you leave 3 weeks to do it, we know what that all adds up to. That adds up to a finance committee and a budget being rushed to get anything done, and to actually hold public hearings on what changes might take place along the same time that you're holding public hearings on a budget. Probably not going to happen in an effective community engagement manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Kinnon. I see no other lights. I believe Councilor Christenson entertained a motion to adopt to ordinance. Is that correct, Councilor?
Yes.
So, roll call? Doesn't matter to me. On Councilor Christenson's motion to adopt to ordinance, clerk will call the roll.
Councillor Anderson.
No.
Bucci.
No.
Christenson.
Yes.
Condon.
No.
DePietro.
No.
Furlong.
No.
Kinnon.
Yes.
Lucy. Matheson.
Yes.
Nestor.
Yes.
Spatafora.
Yes.
5 yeas, 6 nays.
6-5? 6-5, motion fails. It does not get adopted to ordinance. Any questions? I know sometimes you have trouble counting up here, so 6-5. It wasn't me last time, Councilor. Next order of business. Councilor Christensen?
Yeah, could you just maybe let folks know what is the next step? I believe under our rules now, this can't be reintroduced for 6 months.
Correct.
I know you just mentioned something that, what the next step was. Could you just announce that?
Now that the motion prevails to not being adopted to ordinance, it can't be reintroduced for 6 months. Correct.
Middle of May.
Ready?
Go ahead. You all set, Council?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next order of business.
Councilors, on behalf of the Malden Planning Board, submitted herewith for your review is the Malden Master Plan, recommended land use plan, and zoning recommendations. The Planning Board formally adopted the plan last month and hereby requests endorsement of the plan by the City Council. I'm available to discuss the plan and answer any questions you may have, and at your request, planning staff will appear to address the full council regarding the plan and other master planning activities. Thank you for your ongoing support. Sincerely, Michelle Ramiro, Principal Planner.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. This refers to the ongoing vision statements we've been doing for the city. It is being referred to citizen engagement. It's something we've tried to get through for the city, to get the words out there through the website and through the tireless work of Councilor Bucci. So I just want to give a little explanation what it is. It's the visioning. It's part of the evolution process for the visioning statement. They'll be coming down to address the full city council, and we'll be referring this through Councilor Bucci's Citizen Engagement Committee. So, any questions? I don't see any. So on the motion to refer to citizen engagement, Committee. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The item is referred to the Citizens Engagement Committee.
The claims of Corey McCullough, 23 Auburn Street, Donna DiBattista, 18 Everett Street, Everett, Nicholas Riggin, 85 Pearl Street, Everett.
On Council Lucy's motion to refer to Finance, all in favor? All opposed? Items referred to Finance. Next order of business.
Under suspension of docket rules, application for transfer of a Class 2 dealer's license from Base Day Motorsports to Auto Gallery Group Incorporated, 616 Broadway.
On Councillor Neal Anderson's motion to suspend docket rules, all in favor? All opposed? Rules are suspended. On Councillor Neal Anderson's motion referred to license, all in favor? All opposed? Item is referred to license.
Docket is clear.
Docket is clear. I will entertain personal privilege from my left. Councillor Anderson. I'm sorry, Councillor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here. We had a discussion a few weeks ago about the Malden Residence Construction Ordinance, and we had, as you recall, representatives from Gil Bain, who is the general contractor for the project at the high school, as well as our own representative, Mr. James Norton. I think for people, that wasn't a televised meeting, but I want to let people know that all of us really were speaking out about our concerns about this project going on at the high school not having a sufficient number of Malden residents working there. This ordinance that's in place calls for, I think, a 35% Malden residents working on this project, 10% minority persons, 5% women, and 5% apprenticeship, and we are nowhere near being in compliance with that ordinance. Mr. President, you appointed me to meet with that committee, and I wanted to just report to people that I have met with the committee. They are moving to review what has happened to some of the Malden residents who have applied for the positions who have not been hired on the project. We're gonna work hard to make sure that this ordinance that we put in place, that we attain the goals that are set forth. Now, this isn't a new ordinance. It's an ordinance that's been in place for some time, but in earlier projects that we had going on, there was full employment. There weren't as many Malden craftsmen, for example, that were looking for work on these local projects. Well, here in 2009, 2010, the economy is certainly different. There are people, Malden residents with great skills that can be working in these projects, and I would just encourage people that are listening to us by MATV this evening, if you've got craft skills, that you should be applying for work at the high school. There are forms that are being put together with Malden resident public instruction listing your address and the skills that you have and how we can get in touch with you. So folks that are out there looking for work, you ought to be applying going down to the trailer there at the high school and get your name on the list so we can make sure that we've got more Malden people working on these projects, more minority, more women, and attaining the goals that we have set out in this ordinance. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Next slide, Councillor Christenson.
Yeah, Mr. President, thank you. And this is our last televised meetings before the parade. So I just want to make sure people know that we are on for Saturday, November 28th, 10 o'clock liftoff from the Salem Wood School, same route, end of Ferry Salem Main Streets. Still compiling the program. We've added a band or two during the past week, thanks to some wonderful generosity from the community. And we also want to add, Mr. President, this year there's a couple new events on the same day. I know Jim Nestor's been working with the Oak Grove Improvement Association, Mr. President, and they're going to be having storytelling in conjunction with the Malden Public Library for Malden's children, as well as cookie decorating. And then the Malden Community Senior Center is having a winter holiday fair, craft fair, from 11 to 2 at 7 Washington Street. So I think the parade's come along well, as you can attest to. A lot of hard work, Megan Drummy, Peg Crow, and there's a whole host of other committee members. But we're in a much better position than we were about a month ago. And again, that's thanks to a lot of people stepping up and making donations to help get the bands that we need to have a successful parade. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bucci? I'm sorry, there was no light, Councillors. I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple things, just wanted the reminders. This Saturday, the 21st, there will be an H1N1 clinic at the Linden School. Citywide, the Board of Health is sponsoring it from 10 to 2. Please join me. There's a host of different folks from across the city volunteering. We are anticipating a pretty large crowd. So, again, just to remind folks, we're broadcasting it in any venue we can, but the H1N1 clinic, it's not for the general flu. It's only specific to H1N1. And then the second item, I just want to remind folks, because I know that we're on live cable, is that we will be having the second community input session on the Malden Mural project. Again, please come down. It will be hosted here in this chamber from 6 to 7 p.m. Next Monday, the 23rd. Councillor Nestor and Councillor Lucy will be here to represent the City Council. Obviously, all of you folks are welcome to come down, but there will be displaying the artwork of the, there's 13 canvases that are going to be on display that will have some part of the final design. So we're looking for the citizens to come out once again and help us get to what that design process should finally be. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Bucci. Councillor Furlong.
Thank you, Mr. President. My 10-year run as spokesperson for Malden Papuana is about to end. So I look over there to the left side of the hall, and I'm in good hands for next year. Actually, the Malden A Squad midget football team is playing for the state championship this Sunday. I think, Mr. Knox, if you can give me the right time, it's 3 o'clock, 3:15 at Malden Catholic at MC Stadium. It's a state championship. Last week they played 3 games in 7 days and won all 3 games. They've undefeated all year. I think they've had 1 touchdown scored upon them all year. So some support would be well worth it for the city to go out and watch a good football game. On the other side of the ledger, you have this weekend out at the Worcester Centrum, the cheerleaders again. The D Squad right now has won every competition that I probably just jinxed all the teams, that they've competed in so far. So they're in the regionals as the number 1 seed, I guess you'd call it. The B Squad, same thing, and also the A Squad got invited. So it's a busy weekend for Malden Papuana. Like I said, this game Sunday should be a great game. I look forward to it myself. I went to the game against Everett Eagles the other night. They won. They stopped Everett with 1 second to go on the half-inch line to win the game to go on to the next game. So go out there and support them. And also, if I can't just use this time, that I went to the Malden High School Everett game on Sunday, and the kids from Malden did this city proud on Sunday night, because it was probably one of the best football games that I ever saw that Malden High did not win, that they deserved to win. They played their hearts out, and I'd just like to tip my hat to Joe Papagallo and his staff and the players, because they really did the city proud the other night. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Furlong. I have a few announcements in this before we adjourn. We do have something else we want to put on the docket of suspension for Councillor Furlong, so I just want everybody to get up from their seat. First, I want to announce that the primary for the U.S. Senate special election is going to be on December 8th, so we will not be having committee meeting and council meetings because of the election. And then the final election will be January 19th. Voter registration expires for the primary tomorrow night at 8 p.m. So City Hall is open up tomorrow to register. If you are not for the primary tomorrow at 8 p.m., you can go to the City Clerk's office here. And I just want to, remind everybody, too, about the holiday parade. This year I've been involved, but not as much as I have in the past because of some prior commitments. But I just want to thank Councillor Christenson and Peg Crow for their hard work. It's a tough year financially, I think, for everybody to raise the kind of money. It's going to be a small parade, but a more friendly parade. So I encourage everybody to go out, anticipate warmer weather. We are marching in the daylight. I was threatened last year by several grandparents that their kids were frozen. So we have listened to the public, and we have gone back to the daytime. So I encourage everybody to have that good day, and that is it. You say, Councilor. So, Councilor Condon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate City Controller Don Famano for his tremendous work in running the functions that he has run for the Golden Tornado Club and the many thousands and thousands of dollars that he has raised for our athletic program. There was some 250 people at the Hall of Fame banquet, and many of the old-timers and people that are in the Hall of Fame look forward to it every year. And to be quite honest with you, the work that Dom and Sheila do, they're responsible for it. Now, I understand he is going to be taking a little bit of a back seat in future years with the Golden Tornado Club, but I think we'd all be remiss if we didn't stand up and give him a hand for all the work he's done over the years. It's the last good word I'll say to you.
Thank you, Councilor Condon. Much appreciated words. And one more item before we adjourn for the evening. Madam Clerk.
Under suspension of docket rules, ordered that representatives of the Department of Public Works and Engineering appear to discuss Chapter 90 funding, and that the representatives of the MWRA appear to discuss roadway safety. Councillor Furlong.
On Councilor Furlong's motion to suspend docket rules, all in favor? Rules are suspended. Councilor Furlong for the paper.
Thank you, Mr. President. I apologize for getting that in late. This actually affects myself and Councilor Kinnon. This is kind of like a catch-22 because as a ward council, you appreciate the Chapter 90 and the MWA money because you're able to get streets and sidewalks done. But we had an episode over the weekend where we had heavy rains, and obviously in the area. And on Rockwell Street, because of the way that the area is left, I guess the best way to describe it is the cut-ins that the contractor uses to either install the pipe and then the tie-ins to people's property, they backfill it. And they just leave the dirt, they pile it a little bit higher than the street, the roadway, and they come back. And eventually when they get to it, they go back and they either put temporary paving in before they go in and score it and then put new paving on. Well, what happened this past weekend is because Rockwell's a hill, obviously, everything washed out. And there were potholes the size of this hall going down Rockwell Street. It was ridiculous on both sides of the street. So in some other cities and towns, and especially in Boston, and this is the reason why I want them to come in, is you're not allowed to leave a street like that. When you leave for the day, you either have to steel plate it or you have to put some type of binder or coal patch or something over the area. And I know it's a hassle for contractors, but then they can come back in the next day, take it out, or remove the plate and go forward. If you look at the way our streets are done, Rockwell, they had a straight shot, and they went all the way down from the top of Rockwell all the way down to Lebanon Street, and the side of the road is left open. So obviously the road's crowned, and when the water runs, it runs to the curb, and it washed away. And it's become, actually, cars now are on the wrong side of the road going up the hill, which is a blind spot as you come out of Fairview Ave. You can't see it, so someone's on the wrong side of the road. It's potentially disastrous. So I want them to look at, and I know it's an expense, but the contractor's going to have to bear the expense, that they're going to have to either leave the roadway with a plate over it, as much as they've done, or they're going to have to, when they leave for the day, my suggestion is they put some type of material over it so we don't have runoff. And what happens is all the silt that runs off the road and goes down in our catch basins is only a problem for us later on, because now when the DPW goes out to clean the catch basins, they're taking silt and everything else that they have not stopped into our catch basins, which prevents the flows of our sewer system. So that was enough of the history of the construction lesson. But basically I want them to, and this is only going to benefit people in the future here, that they come up with some type of plan that prevents what happened over the weekend. And it could happen anywhere else. So it's just a thought to bring them in. So if we could do that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Any questions? So on Councilor Furlong's motion to adopt, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted. On Councilor Christenson's motion to adjourn, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Council is adjourned.